We are going to talk about structural subtypes today as we get into this. We're going to dive right in. I'll introduce myself in a few minutes, but let's get started with the fun stuff. Sound okay? Sound okay? You know, there are several different structural subtypes. Today, we are only going to look at the connective tissue subtype. Now, this is an interesting client. And for those of you who are with me on Instagram, I'm going to move my camera closer so you can get a better picture. There you go, Instagram. Is that better? It might be a bit wobbly because I'm holding it by hand. What I want to tell you about this client is she's been a client of mine for about 25 years. And as with all my clients, she comes in for a few sessions and then she disappears for a few years, and she works on what we've talked about. And as she starts to come apart again, she'll come back in for a few more sessions and we'll get her back on track. Well, the last time she came into me about 1.5 years ago, and we took new photos of her eyes because, of course, since I'd seen her last, I'd updated some of my equipment, and it's always fun to play with new toys. And so we got these magnificent pictures. Really beautiful high-res pictures. And as I looked at these, knowing a bit about her past, because I've seen her through 2 pregnancies, through a divorce, through a second marriage that didn't last, and, you know, all kinds of stuff, I looked at the details of what I saw in here. And just looking at the structure of the fibers, how are the fibers or the trabeculae sitting in the iris? That's what I was interested in. Now, this hasn't changed at all since the last time we looked at her photos. What you will find when you do iridology is that you can look at the same set of eyes several times, and if you've got a time gap in between them, each time you look at the photos, you will see something different. Something different will strike you, will jump out at you, and will say, pay attention to me. So this time, as I looked at her eyes, I asked her if she was at all prone to sprains and strains and things like that. And she said, funny thing you should say that. And I said, Michelle, tell me what. And she said, now she's got a sister, and I know her sister. Her sister was a client of mine many years ago, and I haven't seen her in a long time. So she said, my sister went for genetic testing and has been told that she has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so I went for genetic testing too, and I have it as well. Now, her sister has it much more seriously, and it's really affected her quality of life and her ability to function. But this, my actual client, who is in her late 50s, is not as badly affected. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, for those of you who may not know, is a genetic disorder where the body does not manufacture collagen properly. Okay. Can I spell that, please? Ehlers, E-H-L-E-R-S, Danlos, D-A-N-L-O-S syndrome. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so why did I ask her about strains and sprains? Because she is an extreme example of a connective tissue type. When we are looking at a connective tissue type, we are looking at an iris where the fibers are very disorganized. There may or may not be lacunae. If there are lacunae, there will always be some that are not attached to the collarette. More importantly than lacunae, when we look at the fiber structure, what we see is chaos. The fibers are not neatly combed. They're not well organized. I describe this as looking like a ball of yarn the cat played with. All right. So when we see this kind of very disorganized fiber structure, that doesn't detract from the beauty of these eyes and from all of the other things we see. But when we see this disorganized fiber structure, this is someone who falls into the category of connective tissue subtype. Connective tissue subtype people are very prone to strains and sprains and breaks. The connective tissue, the collagen in their body, doesn't work to hold them together very well. Okay, and Ehlers-Danlos is a specific autoimmune disorder. And so when we see this, we need to then ask more questions to understand what to do with this person, how best to coach them. So the first thing we think of when we see disorganized fiber is that we need to get more protein into them. But because of the Ehlers-Danlos, increasing her protein is not going to help. All right, so that's an important note for us to make, because we can increase the protein, which increases her amino acids, but if she can't turn those amino acids into collagen, it's not going to do her any good. It's just going to add stress to the kidneys. Here is another client of mine. Now, she has an entirely different scenario. Just let me come back here. What this previous client had come in wanting help with was actually she was gaining weight. And I don't know of any woman in her 50s who really wants to gain weight. And so we were really looking at that as the primary thing. Although we needed to consider, as we were looking at her metabolic balance, we needed to consider her diet and how well she could digest. Her diet was really poor. She had forgotten everything I'd ever taught her. And so we were starting from ground zero and really working on her digestive capacities, because she's not going to lose weight if she's not making good food choices. And there's no sense in making any kind of food choices if you're not digesting. All right. So for her, the connective tissue subtype was a side trip, but it was beautifully explained by the fact that she actually was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos. This is another client of mine, and her name is Anita. She is in her early 50s. You can see here that she also has very disorganized fiber structure. Notice how the fibers are all wobbly and wavy. We've got lots of lacunae. We've got some lacunae that are not attached to anything. They're just free floating. So when we've got free floating lacunae, as in lacunae that are not attached to the collarette, when we've got fiber structure that's wobbly and wavy looking, we know we are working with connective tissue again. Now, connective tissue has an impact on a lot of different things in the body. This woman's concern, her primary concern, was that she hadn't felt well in many years. She is a certified nutrition coach. She knows her foods. Her diet was good. When we looked at her eyes, and we could see that her genetically, her body has a lot of inherently under responsive areas that don't want to do what they're supposed to do. We knew we needed to work more with her foods, but we also knew from looking at her eyes that she doesn't digest well, right? We've got digestive markers here. This client had actually been to all kinds of specialists all over North America looking for answers. And finally, when she got to me, and she was one of my Iridology students, and she finally decided to come in for a session because she lives in my city, we were able to see that a large part of her problem with how she was feeling was that she doesn't digest well. She especially doesn't digest proteins well. So when we added 2 different kinds of enzymes to her program, didn't actually add any other supplements. We didn't change any of her foods to begin with either. We used an enzyme to help her break down her proteins better, and an enzyme to help her break down her carbs and her fats better. And within a month, she was saying she was feeling better than she'd felt in many, many years. Now, when we have the digestive concerns and we've got the connective tissue going on, or that connective tissue predisposition, which would be the more accurate way to describe this, it means that she is, it's going to be harder to get results with her. It's going to take longer. It's going to take more focused work. And so we could work on anything we wanted to. We could throw all kinds of supplements at her. They would have no impact if we didn't go after her digestion first. We needed evidence that her digestion was working better. And then we could go, keep climbing up that ladder to different problems and work on things. It's really important to remember that when we work on digestion, for example, the digestive markers are not going to go away. We haven't changed her genetic predisposition at all. We have simply improved her functioning. Does that make sense? That we're not going to see the eyes change because they are genetic, they are inherent. We're not going to see the irides change. We might see changes in the sclera, but we won't see them in the irides. If that makes sense, yes, it makes sense. Excellent, Trina. Thanks for letting me know that. Excellent. So we actually just really focused on her digestion because her diet was pretty darn good, and worked from there. Now, if there was one problem with her diet, it's that she's a mom and she invests more time and effort into how her school-age children eat than into what she eats. And so, she'd make really good food for them and not necessarily consume that food herself. She'd want to get them fed and get them onto their next project before she ate something. It's like, no, that's kind of the backwards way of doing it. I like to think of the oxygen mask analogy, where you need to take care of yourself first, not to neglect your children, of course, but take care of yourself first. All right, so again, she came into me with gut issues. She came into me with general body pain. The only way we could actually, and the general body pain is pretty obviously connected to the connective tissue type that she is. And so just give me just a second. My door is open. There we go. Hearing all kinds of noise from the rest of the house. Now we won't hear it. And so because she had the general body pain and she knew she had gut issues, it made sense to work on her gut issues first and make that the undercurrent of everything we were going to do. And then once we saw that we were resolving her gut issues, we could build on top of that to work with her body pain. Now, truthfully, chances are that if we take care of the digestion and get her breaking her foods down better and get her assimilating nutrients better, that her general body pain might also resolve on its own. Does that make sense? That if we get nutrients into the body, into the different tissues, they have a better chance of being well and rebalancing. If that makes sense, let me know. Let me know, however you want to say that. Trina says yes. Thank you, Trina. Those of you who have joined us on Facebook, please let us know who you are. Introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from. And we're going to continue. And Sarah's saying, yes, it makes sense. Excellent, Sarah. Thank you so much. All right. So now that we've looked at some eyes, we're going to look at some more in a minute. Let me introduce myself. And Maria is saying it makes sense too. This is very good. My name is Judith Cobb. You probably already knew that if you've been hanging out with me for more than a few minutes. I am a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and a certified level 3 instructor. I am one of only 5 IPA level 3 instructors in the world to date. It's a new level that was introduced just a year ago. I got into holistic healing over 4 decades ago because I had health problems. Actually, I was kind of interested in it in high school, but I didn't know what it was called. I knew that the way we were eating in my home was not good. White flour, white sugar, ice cream, pop, candy bars, cookies, canned vegetables. Everything was fried or boiled. I knew as a teenager that wasn't the best thing to do. And so I started doing things like making bread from scratch from fresh ground whole wheat flour. Whole wheat had not been vilified the way it is now. And I tried to get my mom and dad to be physically active with me, and yeah, none of those things worked very well. They were not interested. In the over 4 decades that I've been in holistic health professionally, I've written and self-distributed several books. Pregnancy Naturally, the Herbal Birth Kit Handbook, Healthy Kids Naturally, The Essential Guide to Nature Sunshine Products, Biokinesiology and Color Therapy Level 1 and 2, and the Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology textbook. I've been teaching holistic health courses for most of my 4+ decades. I love teaching. I was actually in university to be a school teacher, and I was going to be teaching early childhood and elementary education. That wasn't going to work. I had enough credits to graduate, but not enough in any one major. So I finally got married and dropped out instead. And love teaching adults. So courses, many years ago, I designed and taught herbology level 1 and level 2, which was the practical use of commercially prepared herbs. For a few years, I was a certified prenatal educator with the ICEA and loved designing and teaching prenatal classes. And my most recent creations, well, body systems, herbology and iridology, also the dynamic iridology assessment system. We'll be talking about that a little bit today. Women's holistic health. Those are all courses that I have designed and that I currently do teach. Stay with me to the very end of today's workshop, and we're going to talk a bit about the dynamic iridology assessment system program. I have professional credentials, not just with the International Iridology Practitioners Association, but also with the Canadian Association of Holistic Nutrition Professionals, the Canadian Association of Natural Nutritional Professionals, and the Alberta Herbalists Association. Ta-da. Just want to put in a teaser here that the next live course of dynamic iridology will be starting on August 11th. And I'm going to be offering you a particular special invitation at the end of our time together today. If you are a health professional, a herbalist, a nutrition coach, a naturopath, a chiropractor, a medical doctor, an RN, an acupuncturist, if you've got anatomy and physiology firmly under your belt and you're interested in learning iridology, then we really need to chat about what's coming up. If you're not a health professional, but you do have a solid foundation in A&P, we should chat. There's ways for you to move forward with the course too. Just before we start looking at some eyes, just wanted to lob this out there. This is the lovely Joyce Lee. She is a graduate of the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. This is what she said. I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained and with no confidence in my material or my abilities to perform accurate assessments. Judith Cobb, on the other hand, is a wonderful instructor. She presents the material in this course in a concise, organized way. Every aspect of this iridology course is covered in detail. She clearly answers every question asked, no matter how trivial the student may think it is. Judith structures the classes in a way that makes them incredibly interesting. Clarification is clearly established through her instruction, discussion, and student participation. Upon completion of Judith's course, I feel confident in my abilities and excited to offer iridology services to my clients. This is an incredible value, highly recommend. Amazing. Okay, we've got a problem with Instagram. It looks like it might have dropped us. I'm not going to worry about that. We'll post to that later if I need to. Amazing. Let's look at some more eye photos. Okay. These are the eyes of another female client who is in her mid-50s, late 50s. She's been a client of mine for about 20 years. A lot of my clients have been with me for a long time, which is a really lovely thing. It's lovely to have those kinds of connections. Now, she also is connective tissue disorder. When at first glance, if you're way back and you look at her photos, it looks like, well, the fibers are pretty straight. They're pretty much neatly organized, and there's a lot of organization there, but there are some areas where the fibers are just wonky. Okay, we look down here, look up here. Got some interesting stuff happening here. Lots of fibers veering off sideways down here. That's just in her left eye. In her right eye, we again have more fibers that are unusual. And so when she came to me most recently, she too was struggling with weight gain and sore joints. Are we surprised? Not even a little bit, simply because the fibers are disorganized. And, if she's got connective tissue, which her eye suggests she does, that there's some issues there, and she's gaining weight, that extra weight is going to make it very difficult for her joints to do what they're supposed to do. That makes sense? And so we needed to do a few things. First off, again, it had been a few years since I'd seen her. She'd forgotten some of what we'd learned. So we needed to reteach her things about her diet that would be helpful here. We needed to get her being active again. So we started with just getting her walking and doing yoga. Just wanted her to do yoga 30 minutes a day and go for a 30-minute walk a day, which she could do. She's single and works in a job that's quite flexible, so she can work these things in. We also, again, sometimes being single makes it a challenge for the food. You're not having to cook for anyone else, so that makes it easier, but it can be really hard to cook for one person, right? You know, because you batch cook and then you're eating the same thing for days on end. So we got her making soup and freezing the soup in individual servings, which was absolutely brilliant for her. And as we did that, we worked on her digestion a little bit. We got her doing more soups because for her, that would mean it would dissolve the nutrients into a fluid, which would mean she would get more nutrient. And we got her being more active. She took off about 20 pounds just by walking and doing yoga and watching her food intake. Not calorie restrictive, but nutrient selective, right? So important that we make sure that they are doing nutrient selective, right? I am just going to see what's up. Those of you who are with me on Instagram, would someone let me know if we are transmitting? If you're able to see and hear, just give me a yes in the comments. It's looking like Instagram might have dropped the feed, but I'm not sure. Okay, let's look at another one. You're going to see these eyes are all very, there are some similarities, but there are a lot of differences as well. Okay, so Trina got kicked out, but she looks like she might be back. So this is good. Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, excellent. This is so good. So as we look at this set of eyes, this is a set of true brown eyes. We call them hematogenic. And some people find these a little harder to analyze or to assess because of the pigment, because it is so heavily pigmented. What I really want you to notice here, because we cannot see individual fibers, but we do have lacunae that are clearly not attached to the collarette. Clearly not attached to the collarette. And so this means that she also falls into that category of connective tissue. Okay, so if you cannot see all the fibers, as is the case in this particular set of eyes, look for lacunae that are not attached to the collarette. We know the collarette is in tight in around here. And we've got some lacunae that are attached to the collarette, but we've got some that are obviously not. And so we know then that we've got a structural issue. Now, this is a client who was in her mid-30s, and she was trying to conceive. She had polycystic ovarian syndrome. There are other indications in her eyes that tell us she is going to be predisposed to hormonal imbalances. But looking at her just from the perspective of connective tissue, we've got that going on in here as well. We've got those indications that she is the connective tissue subtype. Now, you know, one of the things that we want to be aware of when we're working with someone who's got PCOS, they often have insulin resistance and they're often gaining weight. And so we need to get them being physically active. Having the connective tissue subtype means that we are going to have to be a little bit cautious with what we recommend. Like, I would not recommend to someone who's got connective tissue subtype that they take up kickboxing, right? A contact sport is going to be a little more risky for their joints. I would recommend, again, yoga, walking, swimming. But again, with swimming, you need to be a little cautious with repetitive strain injuries in the shoulders, especially. So I'm going to want her to maybe do a little resistance training using light to moderate weights, not going too heavily at all. And with all of those things, we are going to see some results for her with the PCOS, but we took into account the fact that she has connective tissue. and that means that we're going to work on digestion as well and make sure that her nutrients are balanced. But we need to consider all aspects, right? We need to consider what is the client coming in for. In her case, it was fertility and PCOS. What else do the eyes say? Oh, she's connective tissue. How does that temper the recommendations we make when we're working with PCOS? Can you see how critical it is with this to understand anatomy and physiology? If you see that that's an important thing as we're connecting digestion to tissues, to hormones, give me A and P in the comments, A and P, so that I know you're seeing the importance of having the anatomy connection under all of this. Here's another connective tissue disorder type, and Sarah's saying A and P. Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate that. When you look at these eyes, this eye, and I'll move this over to the other eye in just a moment, can you see how disorganized these fibers are? Can you see they are not radiating out relatively straight from the collarette to the limbus? If you can see that disorganization, I'm going to give you a spelling test. Give me disorganized in the comments box. She's got this in both eyes where the fibers are sloppy, disorganized. Yes, Trina, you get a gold star for spelling today. Good job. And so when we see, I'm just going to see if I can get more of this visible, get some more of this out of the way. Lovely. Thank you, Sarah. Excellent. We've got good spellers in this group. Yeah. And Maria, well done. And Maria's first language isn't even English, and she spelled it right. Well done. Okay. So we've got these disorganized fibers, right? Now, this is a young woman. She's in her mid-20s, and she has joint issues, particularly her knees. And so as we work with her, she's also a little on the heavy side. She's about 5'6" and weighs probably 180. So as I work with her, my first concern is going to be that she's doing the right kind of physical activity so that she doesn't damage her knees further, right? So we need to find out. For her, it's things like water workouts, getting into a swimming pool and walking lengths is a brilliant way for her to walk because you don't have the vertical pressure on the knees. And it gives that little bit of a cardio workout. So we wanted to get her water walking. We also wanted to get her doing a bit of gentle resistance, just using stretchy bands, not even getting into weights at all, just stretchy bands. Suggested she work with a physiotherapist to have a proper workout program outlined for her that would strengthen and not compromise her knees and her ankles. And then we needed to work on digestion. Her diet's not great. When she's stressed, her therapy is baking. And we always know when she's been stressed. She's one of our daughters-in-law. We'll get a phone call from them saying, Bree was baking today. Can we stop by and drop some off? Because she bakes more than she needs. That's what it takes for her to start lifting herself out of a funk. But they eat some of it too, and it's not what she needs. All right. So we work on digestion with her, and we're working on mindfulness with her eating to help her make better food choices. Because I'm concerned that when she and my son start having babies, that there are going to be some issues with her back and her hips just because of how disorganized her fiber structure is. Having a physically uncomfortable pregnancy is not fun, so we want to prevent that. Let's hear from another graduate, Adam. Adam is a naturopath and herbalist in London, England. He says, having had comprehensive iridology training in the past, I can attest that the dynamic iridology course is well-rounded and covers all the necessary basics, embellished with the teacher's own experience and discoveries. The course is taught from up-to-date information, and it is clearly apparent how much work she puts into staying in the forefront of iridology research. The hidden gem in this iridology course is the ongoing support that Judith kindly offers, and which I find to be an invaluable gift and resource. That support is really, it is valuable because I offer a couple of different ways for my students to have community and to bring cases that they're working on. So they can bring iridology photos to our mentorship meetings, and we can discuss them and help them work through them. The next course starts on August 11th from 4 till 6:15 Mountain Time. Early registration is open, and I encourage you to consider, if you want to look at getting enrolled, schedule a call. This is not a sales call. It's literally, it's a 15-minute phone call just to ascertain whether this course is the right fit for you right now or not. Now, here's the thing. There's only room for 10 students in each program, right? And so when those seats are full, you get put on a wait list for the next go round. So I encourage you, grab that URL, tinyurl.com/insight-call, and let's chat. Let me introduce a little bit about the course. The Dynamic Iridology Assessment System is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, and naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. This is so important. And I focus on health professionals because if you come to me with a solid foundation in anatomy and physiology, we can go much deeper. We can go way beyond one mark is one thing. If you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you actually want to learn how the iris markers play off each other, and if you want to be mentored as to how to create client programs, if you want long-term support after the course is done, not just while you're in the course, then we need to chat. Either book a call or let me know that you want to join me later on today at 5 o'clock. I am doing 5 o'clock Mountain Time. So that's what, 5.5 hours from now, I'm doing a webinar to give you details of the course. The goal of this course is to teach you constitutional iridology and how to use it confidently so that you can integrate what you already know about nutrition and herbology to confidently create doable client programs in your paid client sessions. So again, if you are interested in learning iridology at a professional level, and if you are a health professional of any description, let's have a call. Schedule a 15-minute call. Let's see if this is the right thing for you. That's all I've got for you today, folks. And do you have any questions about anything we talked about at all? Give you just a minute. If you've got a question, just raise your hand and I'll wait for you to type. Otherwise, we will wrap up. It's looking like we might all be good. Amazing. Okay, so Sarah, what I will do is I will grab your email address from your registration for this webinar, and I will send you the link for the webinar this afternoon. You are welcome, Sarah. I appreciate that you were here today. And Trina says, I really appreciate how you brought up the different types of exercise. Yeah, so based on different markers in the eyes. Yeah, absolutely. We have to, this is one of the big differences between learning iridology at a deep clinical level and learning it at a weekend course where you're just learning the markers. All righty. So Sarah, I am making a note to send you the link. Sarah Thompson. There we go. I will get that to you in just the next few minutes. And if anybody else wants that link, let me know right away. Fabulous. It's looking like we are golden. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. And Sarah, I'll see you later this afternoon. Take care and have a good one. Bye for now.